I'm going to start the program. You want to let Laksmipriya speak? All right, we're ready. We'll start. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Hi, everybody. I'm Asuya, Jennifer, Devon, and Ladini and Malini. Tonight's Bhagavad Gita class is chapter 9, verse 22. Give you a minute to find it. Chapter 9, verse 22. Okay. So we'll start with the Sanskrit words. Call and response. The first one is Ananya,
Ananya
Chintayanta,
Chittayamta
Mam,
Ye
Jana,
Jana
Payupasate,
Vayupasate
Tesham,
Tesham
Nitya,
Nitya
Abhiyuktanam,
Abhiyuktanam
Yogashemam,
Yogakshemam
Vahami,
Vahami
Aham.
Aham.
The verse is Ananyas Chintayanto Mam,
Ananyashchintayamto mam
Ye Jana Parupashate,
Yajana Payupasate
Tesham Nityaabhiyuktanam,
Tesham Nityabhiyuktanam
Yogashemam Vahamyaham,
Yogakshemam Yahamahamyaham
Ananyas Chintayanto Mam,
Anyanashchintayamto mam
Ye Jana Parupasate,
Yajana Payupasate
Tesham Nityaabhiyuktanam,
Tesham Nityabhiyuktanam
Yogakshemam Vahamyaham,
Yogakshemam Vahamyaham
Ananyas Chintayanto Mam,
Ananyashchintayanto mam
Ye Jana Parupasate,
Yajana Payupasate
Tesham Nityaabhiyuktanam,
Tesham Nityabhiyuktanam
Yogakshemam Vahamyaham.
Yogakshemam Vahamyaham
Anybody else like to? Sorry, go ahead.
Ananyashchintayanto mam
Ananyas Chintayanto Mam,
Yajana Payupasate
Ye Jana Parupasate,
Tesham Nityabhiyuktanam
Tesham Nityaabhiyuktanam,
Yogakshemam Vahamyaham
Yogakshemam Vahamyaham.
Ananya Chintayanto Mam
Ananyas Chintayanto Mam,
Yajana Parupasate
Ye Jana Parupasate,
Tesham Nitya Viyuktanam
Tesham Nityaabhiyuktanam,
Yogakshemam Vamahamyaham.
Yogakshemam Vahamyaham. Anyone else? Okay. We'll repeat the synonyms. Ananya,
Ananya
no other.
No other.
Chintayanta,
Chintayanta.
concentrating.
Concentrating.
Mam,
Mam
unto me.
unto me
Yea,
Ye
who,
Who
Jana,
Jana
persons,
persons
Parupashate,
Vayupasate
properly worship.
properly worship
Tesham,
Tesham.
Tesham, yeah, the accent's on the second half, Tesham. There,
There.
Nitya,
Nitya.
always,
Always.
Abhiyuktanam,
Abhiyuktanam.
fixed in devotion,
Fixed in devotion.
Yogakshemam,
Yogakshemam.
requirements,
Requirements.
Vahami,
Mahami.
carry,
Carry.
Aham,
Aham.
I.
I.
Translation. But those who worship me with devotion, meditating on my transcendental form, to them I carry what they lack and preserve what they have. Purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. One who is unable to live for a moment without Krishna consciousness cannot but think of Krishna 24 hours. Being engaged in devotional service by hearing, chanting, remembering, offering prayers, worshiping, serving the lotus feet of the Lord, rendering other services, cultivating friendship, and surrendering fully to the Lord. Such activities are all auspicious and full of spiritual potencies. Indeed, they make the devotee perfect in self-realization. Then his only desire is to achieve the association of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This is called yoga. By the mercy of the Lord, such a devotee never comes back to this material conditioned life. Shema refers to the merciful protection of the Lord. The Lord helps the devotees to achieve Krishna consciousness by yoga. And when he becomes fully Krishna conscious, the Lord protects him from falling down to a miserable conditioned life. Namankyanatirandasya jananjana shalakaya chakshuru militamina tashmai Shri Gurve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Shtapitam Yena Bhutale Svayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Svapadam Dekam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Parakamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavam Cha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Sri Vishaka Vitam Cha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radhakanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gorange Radhe Vrinda Radeshwari Vishabhanu Sute Devi Hanumami Hari Priye Vanchakalpa Tarupyascha Kripa Sindhu Vyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadha Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale, Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namane, Namaste Saraswati Devi, Gauravani Pacharine, Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashchachade Satarine. Prabhupada Ki Jai. So chapter 9, text 22. I always, I don't like leading class because I feel unprepared and inequipped to say anything worth creating a class around. So I usually don't lead class. Even when I'm asked, sometimes I decline. And when I do, the few times that I have, or when I'm really excited about a verse or something really touches me, I like self-study, and I share in my conversations here with the house guests, but not in front of you guys because I get nervous. And so in choosing this verse today for this class, I knew I was going to teach this class for a few weeks, and I was waiting for the right verse to come up and get me excited. And I was thumbing through the Bhagavad Gita and doing my reading and this and that, and going to Melanie's classes, and nothing was coming up. Nothing was like really touching me. And so Sunday night, I was like, well, I should get started preparing. And I had a lady here named Mary who comes here a lot. She's her 6th time here. She just left a couple of days ago. And Mary chants with me, but she says she's an atheist. She doesn't want to hear about God. So it makes it difficult, but also she keeps coming back. So she was here Sunday night when I was thinking to myself, I should be getting started preparing for class. And so something happened where I was making dinner for us and she was upstairs. And so I decided I would turn the television on to something that her ear might get excited about so that we could have a different kind of conversation. And I knew that I didn't know, but I guessed that if I had Prabhupada or something that was difficult for her, that she would just get frustrated with me. So I don't know where the idea came from, but I thought about Brené Brown's TED Talk. And I don't know, I just kind of randomly picked it. And I thought, well, that'll at least be conscious conversation about, determination and things I could link back to the Gita, because we're reading chapter 18 in class. And so chapter 18 was on my mind. And so I just picked this video and put it on, and I started cooking. And when she came down, I could see that she sat down and she was interested in it and intrigued by it. And as I was listening to it, I became intrigued by it, even though I had seen it before and I was kind of not into it anymore. I somehow knew that she would be, and somehow through her talk, I was able to find Bhagavad Gita verses that fit what she was saying, except she wasn't mentioning the God part, but it was the same thing. So in our homework this month for chapter 18, we were studying, one of the questions revolved around the chapter 18, verse 26, and about getting excited about being determined and really striving to be a devotee and to go at it 100%. And so I'm listening to her, and she's reading this quote from Theodore Roosevelt from 1910 that she's famous for reviving and writing books and having all these followers for it. And so I was listening to her say it on the screen, and I had to put my stuff down and really focus because it was really good. Again, because I hadn't listened to it in so many years, it touched me again. And I was like, that's Bhagavad Gita. And so I just turned to Mary and I said, the same stuff I'm always talking about that you don't want to listen to. This is the same thing, but you're listening to this. And so I was trying to extrapolate from what she was saying. And it's very much chapter 18, but it wasn't, didn't have any God stuff in it. So she could handle it. So it brought up a lot of good conversation for us throughout the night. But I want to read y'all what she said, because I want you to hear it and see if it moves you in any way. And maybe you've all heard this before. It's pretty common. So the part of the speech that she extrapolates from Roosevelt's speech is called the Man in the Arena speech. And it goes like this: it's not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles, or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who's actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who at the best knows in the end the triumph of high achievement, and who at his worst, if he fails, at least fails while daring greatly. So when I heard that, I was like, okay, there's my verse. I'm going to lead class on verse 1826, which talks about that very thing, about really reaching deep and having determination and enthusiasm, and God helps those who help themselves. But you got to get in the ring. You got to be in the arena. I have to come down off of the cheap seats in the top and the back behind the curtain and get down on the floor and be in the arena. So I got excited thinking, I'm a devotee. I'm a full-time devotee. So I'm going to have this opportunity to lead class. And this discussion, this enthusiastic discussion that Brené Brown was sharing was making me enthusiastic. And then I noticed how Mary perked up. So I was thinking to do class with 1826. And I said, well, in spite of whether my class is terrible or exciting or inspiring, I'm not going to be attached to that. I'm just going to be in the mode of goodness and do my best. And then I thought, okay, I'll just lead class, and whatever I don't know or don't have or haven't realized yet, Krishna will have my back. And that led me to this verse 9:22. So I went and read 9:22 and what the one we just shared together. And I was like, okay, I don't have to have a perfect class. I can just depend on Krishna to carry what I lack, right? That seems like, so then I got super excited because the weight came off of like, I don't know what to talk about. I don't know how to say, I'm not articulate. And I started putting myself down like, no, I'm going in the arena. So thank you, Brene Brown, and thank you, Mary. And then I also, had the discussion with Mary about why do we think we're the doer, and why are we in the arena giving all the credit to ourselves? And of course, I can relate to that because I had a big, fat, long career of thinking that I was the doer, and I still think that, but not in that big, fat way I used to. So at least there's some progress. Because Roosevelt doesn't mention God and Bernie Brown doesn't mention God, because then you don't have as many followers, I guess. So the emphasis is on the self doing all the work, on working hard at our jobs, our 9-to-5 jobs ourselves. And she hasn't read verse 327 of Bhagavad Gita, or maybe she has, and the concept is she keeps private. I don't know. That's, as I understand it, is false ego. And it's my independence, her independence from God, wanting to do it without not accepting that he's the one in charge, and that we're being maintained, like this verse says. He's carrying what we lack, and he's providing what we don't have, and securing and saving and making sure we don't lose what we do have. So we got to talking about the verse, and Bernie Brown talks a lot about vulnerability, and I think that was why I get hesitant to lead class, because I don't like being vulnerable. So I had to look at that, and that was fun. And then I called Jennifer, is she still here? Hey, Jen. And I said, I'm thinking of teaching on this class. And so she said, well, I've got a quote like that too, that's similar, that she shared with me. It says, he doesn't call the qualified, he qualifies the called. And so I really felt like after she shared that and what happened with Bernie Brown, that this was my verse. And so then I got to sink into it for a couple of days and read Prabhupada's books and notes and letters and things. And so, and in doing that, I ran across this story multiple times about Arjunacharya. And I think we've heard it in class, and I'm sure you guys have all read it, but I'm going to try to tell it to you again to demonstrate how verse 922 is how it's shared by the story from Arjunacharya. So I'm going to give you the condensed version, because it's got many versions that I read, but this is the condensed quick version for this little short class. So he was a poor devotee, an exalted, purposeful, dedicated devotee, Arjunacharya, and his job was not to go to work every day. His job was to read the Bhagavad Gita, which I've been doing for a couple of days. So it really is fun to not have to go outside of the house and to be able to focus on Prabhupada's books. So he was reading the Bhagavad Gita, not Prabhupada's version, but his job was as a commentator. And so he would write commentary. And in those days, it wasn't on the computer or on paper. It was on some kind of like paper type tree bark stuff. So when you had to make a comment or an exchange, you had to kind of carve it out. And so while he was a very satisfied person and not disturbed by the material world so much, he got to verse 922 and he just couldn't believe that Krishna personally, because it says that where's my verse? Aham Vahami is I carry, and he just couldn't believe that Krishna would say he personally would carry it. He's like, oh, he's got some associates, or he's going to assign it to somebody, but this can't be right. And it troubled him. So he kind of got in his head for a minute and had some doubt. And so he actually scratched it off the page with a knife. And this is how I understand it. I'm happy to be corrected later if I'm exaggerating. But so he used his own intelligence and he scratched it off the page. And then he went about his day and because they were very poor, humble people, he went out into the village and he had to procure food for his wife to cook. So he was out begging for food, and she was waiting for him to come back. And there was a knock on the door. And so when she went to the door, it wasn't him with the food. It was these two boys, one dark-skinned boy and one light-skinned boy, young boys with a sort of bamboo thing between their shoulders, and then a knapsack of vegetables and fruits and nuts and rice and all kind of things, foodstuffs in the bag. And they took it off the shoulders and gave it to her, and she took it inside. They came in with her, and the darker boy was very attractive, and she was really noticing him and watching him and excited to cook for him. And she said, "Where did all this come from, and how did it get here?" And they said, "Oh, we saw your husband in town, and so we just brought it." We told him we would just deliver it for him, and we bring it here, and he'll be here later. So she was excited, and confused. It was a lot of food, not just a little bit like she used to getting one or two things. This is a lot of food. So she was questioning it, and then she noticed these marks on him. I think it was on his back or shoulder or something, that there was some cut marks. So with the cut marks, she questioned, where do those come from, and why is it bleeding like that? And he said, "Well, your husband did it." And she was kind of astonished because her husband wasn't that kind of person, but she was concerned. So she didn't understand and asked them to just sit down for a while she prepared the food to wait for him to come home. And they said, "No, we don't want to wait when he comes home, because he's angry. He's gonna, we've seen what he can do." So they left, and when her husband came home, he wanted to know what's going on. She's cooking all this wonderful food, and she's got way more than the two of them can consume, and he didn't get it for her. So she tells the story to him about the boys, and they are they're gone. They're gone. So she's asking him about the cut marks, and then he puts two and two together and realizes that this was actually Krishna who came himself, and that the cut mark was because he cut the Bhagavad Gita. And so it's like cutting Krishna, because the book is a representation of Krishna. It is Krishna. It's not just a piece of paper or a piece of wood or a book. So he puts that together, and he feels terrible for superseding Krishna's words and thinking that he knew better. And so he cried, and they prayed, and they paid obeisances to their deities. And he saw by example that Krishna could carry what we lack and provide, actually do it himself. And he knew that he had been corrected. So he ran into the streets just excited, telling everyone that Krishna could carry what we lack, and this Bahami just kind of yelling it for everyone to hear, because he was excited, and that Krishna doesn't send an agent to do this, that Krishna actually is our maintainer himself. So our necessities, like food and shelter, clothing, come from Krishna, and we can get confused sometimes that they come from our own hard work. I know I do. So I was thinking a little bit about this story and this verse about karma. And I don't know that much about karma. Karma is a new subject to me, but the karma of if we lack something, I think it is is due to our karma. And also karma is not eternal. So karma can be adjusted, and Krishna can certainly adjust it, even though there are very stringent rules to karma. I think Krishna can come in and make things completely different. He can intervene. And so I'm going to share with you the story about Sudama later, but basically the strict laws of karma get adjusted. And so there's karma going, like, why is this Arjunacharya so poor if he's such a great devotee? And so there's some karma play in this verse, and that's all I kind of know about it. So I'm open for discussion and questions later if you guys know more about that. So then the duty. So our duty, we don't have to go find a job or find work to be dutiful. Our duty is to be a servant. Our duty is devotion. So it's inherent in us. So it's our natural dharma. So the duty of serving means we're not going to starve, but there's all this talk about everybody thinks somebody's going to starve. If I don't work hard, if I don't go somewhere and earn the money and get the paycheck, then I'm not going to have enough. And so this goes on, especially in the United States, and to trust that Krishna is going to carry what we lack is really hard for us. So I was thinking about Prabhupada this morning, and I was just thinking about the things I've heard about Prabhupada, how he, so many thousands of stories, and still today. But I was just in some of the reading and letters that I was reading, I thought about Prabhupada at Tompkins Square Park just chanting, and people just came. Like, he just trusted that people would show up. He trusted that he would have a meal that night. He trusted that they would have these temples, and then George Harrison buys them a temple in London that's bigger than any house all the devotees could have saved for their whole life. It was just so much more than what they would have asked for. And the fact that all these people were distributing books, and nobody was getting salaries for distributing books, but yet none of those devotees starved, and that Prabhupada was sleeping very little, 2 or 3 hours, and 80 years old. He's still he's still maintaining himself and all the devotees. So there's a couple things that whenever I think about this, how Krishna had Prabhupada's back, how he gave all Prabhupada and all the devotees what they like. He gives all of us what we like, whether we're devotees or Prabhupada or not. But I don't know of any stories where the devotees starved to death because they didn't go to work and have a regular, mundane job. But Prabhupada said in a lot of the stuff I was reading that he doesn't know where tomorrow's meal is coming from. Like, he just knows he has some today, and tomorrow is tomorrow. And so I like that. It seems difficult for me to grasp right now, but it sounds, I've got a lot of work to do in this area. And so for me, it's definitely just reading this the last couple of days and reading these letters and stuff and lectures and things where he talks about how I've got enough for today. I don't know about tomorrow. That it's heartwarming, and it's very encouraging. And I have to look at my own eating stuff and my grocery shopping and my budgeting for groceries, and all of that needs to have a check. And so I was motivated by Prabhupada's trust. And then I also want to share with you some examples from Prabhupada's house, because it's daily, a daily mirror out here for me, and a daily example of Krishna carrying what I lack and what we lack here. And some of it looks like it was fun to think about them this week. I know that there's so many more, but a few of them that just to share with what my realizations were from this verse that are happening right here is, we have a donation jar, and a lot of guests come here, and I always prepare prasadam for all the guests. And it's, I use the money from the jar to go get the groceries, and then I come back and I cook, and I don't really know who puts money in and who doesn't. I don't really track it, but there's always $100 bills in there, just magically. I don't know who puts them. I don't know where they come from, but it always covers the groceries, always, and then some. And so these are my guests. These aren't devotees. These are just my guests who are seeing the love here and appreciating what we do. And they don't really know everything, but they're conscious that it's a loving, beautiful, God-centered household. And so they wish us well. And so they contribute more than what I serve them for food. So that's every week basis. And then I keep a grocery list on the fridge with a few things that come up, and we're out of oatmeal, and we serve a lot of oatmeal here. So I was making my list last week, and I put oatmeal at the top of the list. And now I no sooner started my list and was going shopping than one of the neighbors came over with 2 big jars of oatmeal and said, "Hey, I don't eat this stuff. Do you guys want it here?" It was 2 big containers of oats. And I was like, "Yeah, I'll take it. I'll scratch that off the list." So I just look at things like that. And then another friend of mine's mother passed away during COVID, and she called me when it happened a couple of months ago and said, "Look, my mom's gone, and I'm going to be cleaning out her house. Could you send me a list of everything you might need for the household that I could bring over from her house? Because what am I going to do with all this? And I know you're doing a great service there." So I sent her a list, and she delivered everything I asked for plus some. And then I in turn passed it on to other people who visited because she gave me too much stuff. So it's kind of like the little few things we're short have all just shown up. And then the bead bags that I sew, I know some of you guys have gotten bead bags for me. Mostly I give them away. Every now and then I get $20 for them, but I get enough to cover the fabric usually, but it's I don't like giving the beads away without the bags because it makes me nervous that they're just going to throw them in the car seat or they're going to get on the floor or something in their feet. So I make the bead bags and make sure that everybody that wants some beads gets a bag, whether they donate $20 or not. So that service is fun, and that service it's very joyful for me to sew because I get to listen to classes while I'm sewing and be still for a minute. And then I'm going to share one more example. I think some of you guys met Tina, who is she was here for a while, over a month, and she came as an Airbnb guest, and she just was motivated by service like no guest I've ever seen before. And so she continually every day said, what time, give me a list, what kind of things should we work on today? And we cleaned out every closet and drawer. We deep cleaned everything. We took everything out of the kitchen cabinets. We cleaned out the refrigerators. We did everything. And she's the one that was here when I had closed Prabhupada's house for 3 days during Christmas to do some painting. And she was here before that. So when I told her I was going to do that, she says, I'll stay, I'll help you. And she, just accepted being here as her payment. She didn't want anything. She wanted to keep paying as an Airbnb guest. She just did continual service. So when she left, I had gotten so much done. Our internet isn't that steady out here, and she had some problems with her job and the internet. So when she left, she didn't want to leave, but she had to leave. And it was almost like I went, was she really here? Like, I couldn't believe how much service she did. And it was like all the things I wanted to do and all the things that need to be done in this spiritual house needs to be clean and organized and ready. And it's just a lot. And so even though I had set aside a few days to do it myself, having someone help me for a month was really cleansing and really showed me what service looks like, because she was so giving of her time and so positive while we did it. And she didn't mind if I played kirtan, or she would sit with me when I play the harmonium in between when we take breaks. So that was I feel like that was Krishna. Krishna was, I think, brought her here, and because he was like, there's no way you can't keep up with this by yourself. And she was so pleasant to spend time with and so agreeable and such a positive person that it didn't feel ever like work. It felt like service for sure. And then she got to experience what service is like too. And we talked a lot about it. We learned verses together while we were cleaning, and she was just as excited to learn the Bhagavad Gita verses as I was. So I had a partner for a moment, and then she was gone. and now the closets are a little messy again. So anyway, so the Prabhupada house examples of Krishna carrying what we lack. Me and all the guests and all of you guys who come to programs certainly have plentiful amounts of prasadam here, but there's always this underlying, well, what if we starve, or what if somebody's starving? Like, everything's about starving. So what if there wasn't enough money to get groceries, and what if I had to miss some meals, or what if y'all didn't have the perfect meal on Enlightenment Program, or what if I couldn't feed the neighbors, or what if the Airbnb guests had to go fend for themselves? Like, it's kind of this funny thing that goes on. And I'm such a foodie, and I'm in the food business all my life. And my grandmother, everyone, I grew up with a garden. My family, it's amazing when I look back on it. We had a garden. My grandmother lived a block away, and she had a garden. And until I was in college, I never ate a processed food in my life. My mother made a whole dinner every night from scratch, from the garden, whatever was in season. And I didn't know any different, but I learned to love food because of all of that beautiful. I mean, there was someone making everything from scratch, and it was just fascinating to be with my grandmother cooking. So it starts from an early age, and it probably is my deep karma that I have such food attachments. But let's just say there's no food, and we are starving, and there's no money in the jar, and there's no money in my bank account, and there's no food for the program. and I thought about that this week, and I said, okay, what would happen? Like, because that's the fear, is that it won't happen and somebody's gonna, starve. It's such a it's I heard that at the dinner table, eat everything on your plate because there's people starving, it's just a whole thing. So for devotees, it doesn't matter if we starve, right? Things can be worse than starving. So I started thinking about, well, what's worse than starving? Like losing my eyes or my legs or my hands or my teeth. Like, so starving, I was like, okay, starving, it could be worse. So if I'm starving, then Krishna wants me to starve. So it must be good for me, right? And it would be probably. And I'm not going to complain. I'm a devotee and I'm going to accept what Krishna gives me because I know he's taking care of me. He's maintaining me and he's so kind. So if he's removing food from my ability, then he is saving me from that propensity that I have to overeat or eat lavishly. He's showing me a different mentality in a rough way. And so he's changing things on me on purpose. And you guys would understand if you showed up and there was no prasadam. I don't think you would, it wouldn't be the end of the world. It would be mercy for me in a lot of ways as a foodie. And I would see it as some kind of grace. I haven't had to experience that yet, but I just like to I wanted to address out loud and be vulnerable about nobody's starving over here, and nobody I know is ever starved. I know there are starving people, so I don't want to diminish that. But so thinking a lot about food issues and starving and how we count on Krishna to carry what we lack. To me, it has a lot of food. And then reading about Arjuna Chariot has a lot of food relationship. So how to not starve and how to not be homeless. It's all rooted in Krishna consciousness. So we have to water the root, right? We know about watering the root from Sappatov and Bhagavad Gita and Bhagavatam. It's everywhere. So we activate this watering the root with our service. And so when we serve, everyone gets to benefit. We get to benefit. We get enough food, enough home, enough shelter, enough heat, enough blankets, enough shoes, what we need, because we're in service. We water the root by our devotional practice, by being in this class tonight, by being in the class in the mornings early on the weekends, by being in Molly's classes all week, by doing our Bhagavad Gita homework, by offering all of our food, all the things that we do, by being on the floor in front of the altar first thing in the morning, all of those things, all of those devotional activities that happen here at Prabhupada House, all the japa, all the kirtan, it waters my root and everybody's happy. And it waters all of us. And so the whole of this neighborhood and this community and this country benefits from that. And so if you want to avoid starvation and homelessness, which seems to be what everybody's afraid of, then you become subordinate to Krishna and Prabhupada and watch things expand right in front of your very eyes. Krishna's pleased, everybody's happy, and it's the best thing we can do for ourselves and humanity. It sounds so simple, right? And so, but there's more. So in order to do all that and get and really have Krishna carry what we lack, it looks like surrender. And that's the hard part. And that's also chapter 18, verse 66. And that's one of the first verses I learned. And I remember having a really sincere devotional moment hearing that verse for the first time. It's like, I got you, just go ahead. And I felt it the first time. I never forget, Garuda was teaching class at their house at the Enlightenment Program, and I heard it and I just felt it. And I just knew that there's something's happening. I don't know about surrender, but I knew that there was a thing called surrender, and that for me to go all the way, it was going to require that. And I'm working towards chipping away at some surrender. But it's more like practicing not being the doer. And in chapter 3, it's like, don't, this isn't about me. This is about my energy and my, me just doing and trying to fix everything and organize everything and outthink everything. It's about just surrendering. So it's not about my hard work unless my hard work's for Krishna. So Prabhupada uses that phrase like serving dog. instead of God. I like that. And so I've seen that on bumper stickers. So I think people think that's funny. But I had a dog, and I love dogs. And I have a neighbor with 20 dogs. And you guys don't know about that yet because we haven't been in the front yard. But in the front, there's a guy across the street who now has 20 dogs. And I am learning about a lot of patience and surrender with these dogs. So what I'm noticing is watching him with the dogs is that, and I can watch and I can hear the dogs. That's the worst part, is I hear 20 dogs being let out for snack time is like opening the kennel doors. It's really loud and it vibrates through this entire space. And so I can also hear him training them. And he's in the morning from 7 till about 9:30 at night training these dogs. And I think about that, like he's doing all that work, and no different than the work I did in the catering business. He's doing all that work, and it's not to please Krishna, it's to make some money. So that work is useless. And it's a daily reminder of how ridiculous and foolish working outside of Krishna conscious looks. I get to see it. It's firsthand, and I get to hear it. And I know he thinks that, just like I did when I was catering, it's like, oh, I'm going to sell these dogs and I'll make some money and I'll get some more dogs and I'm going to be even bigger. And we're going to, and so every morning I'm going to work hours and hours and hours out in this filthy situation, yelling at dogs all day. So he thinks it's for him, and he is not looking at it as any kind of spiritual practice. And I don't think so. I don't know for sure, but I'm pretty sure. But Krishna actually can withdraw, like when we do things like that, he can withdraw his mercy. And so I'm surprised I survived, because I had so much of that doing business going on. I still do. I'm not saying I'm over it, but I'm saying, whoa, the comparison is startling. And that I think Krishna had my back and gave what I liked, even when I was doing my other job. And I was putting in so much strenuous effort, not in my devotion, but in my job. I see that guy doing strenuous effort. It's so much work, and they're just running everywhere. And then scooping up all the poop for 20 dogs multiple times a day. I mean, I can't even imagine. That's just disgusting. And I think about all that he has to do, feeding them and cleaning their bowls and cleaning their kennels, and they sleep inside. So I just think that's a lot of work. I hope he doesn't like it after these dogs are gone, and he doesn't do it again, because I think he's going to sell all these dogs. So that's my hope. But I'm not attached to that. I'm just learning to deal with it. So that independence, the independence that I had when I was working, independence that I still have, independence that I want to hold on to, it keeps me from Krishna. And I know that that I'm working on that. And that's another thing on my checklist of getting used to not being me being the doer. And I probably talks a lot about dogs and cats don't go to work, and animals. There's all these millions of animals, and they're, eat, sleep, mate, defend category that we're supposed to be aware that we have the choice, the consciousness to rise above that and to do more than that. And that's not what we're here for. And so, but they all eat. No, I know some manatees are starving and some other animals are starving from time to time, but it's human, or it's karma, or it's whatever. But there's a lot of Krishna is definitely taking care of the world, the planets, the universe. And so I'm going to focus on staying on contract. I'm a full-time devotee. I don't know what's happening with the dogs, the manatees, but I've got devotional work to do, and I'm only partially minutely surrendered. And so I get to only get partially minutely protected and cared for. And yet I have so much. So I can't even imagine what it's like when someone is fully surrendered. I mean, well, I look at Prabhupada and I can see how beautiful that is. And it seems so out of reach. So what else we can do to not be homeless or starving is chant. And so we chant our rounds every day. And Chaitodarpana Marjanam is we cleanse the heart. My heart has so much crud on it, and I cleanse and I chant with all my heart every day. And I just pray that somehow it's getting a layer off. I can't ever tell until time goes by and I notice something's not going on in my mind anymore, or some new habit is getting a little firm. And I think, I don't know if it's the chanting, but I sure try with my chanting. And today I chanted especially nicely. And I was thinking, am I having a nice chanting session today? Because I want Krishna to help me with this class tonight, to have my back to support what I lack, it's possible that I was still doing. And so other ways we can keep from starving in so many ways, not just food. So we practice Krishna conscious 24/7. So there's a lot of talk about that in Bhagavad Gita 24/7, and chapter 18, chapter 10, about just focus on me and then come to understand me, like spend time with me, develop relationships with me, serve me, work for me, all of it. And we do this duty to Krishna, and we get maintenance beyond what we can imagine. And we listen, Shrinu, Shravanam. We listen to Krishna, we listen to Prabhupada, we hear about Krishna's pastimes. And then we have to have a spiritual master. So one of my first verses that I learned for Prabhupada, Prabhupada's appearance day, Tadvidi Pranipatina. If I am submissive and I inquire, because he knows the truth, I memorize that verse, and I'm only starting to begin to understand. I don't know submissiveness too well, and I don't ask a lot of questions, and I still keep my independence, but I do love Prabhupada, and I talk to Prabhupada every day. So I pray that he hears me and that I can have some realizations eventually, and it's to embrace submissiveness, that surrender part, that submissive part of surrender. It's a new energy for my life, submissiveness and surrender. So I've been reading about this for the last couple of days after my Bernie Brown experience with Mary, and just reading and enjoying preparing for this class. And I went to bed last night listening to a Prabhupada lecture on this verse, and I just left it on. I knew I would kind of fall asleep before it was over, but kind of had it just going. And then I fell asleep, and then I listened to it again this morning, but I was I got a good night's sleep, and I set my alarm for early this morning, but I woke up before the alarm went off, as I usually do. And I was fresh from a dream. And in my dream, I saw an old friend who's passed away a few years ago of cancer. And he was an extravagant, creative, really outgoing person. And he made the most beautiful wedding cakes made out of polenta. He was from Italy. He had cooking classes and covered dish dinners where people would bring. He had all these great ideas. He sewed wedding dresses. He was one of the most talented, beautiful people I know as far as his creativity. But he could be negative. He was godless, and he was a little abrupt. But I was so attracted to his talents that I was friends with him for 25 years. And when he left his body, I was with him at the hospice, and he was not having anything to do with God. Even I wasn't God conscious yet either, but I wasn't dying. And he was admitted to me that he was scared. I didn't know what to do with that, because I was scared too. I didn't know. So anyway, he was in my dream last night. So when I woke up this morning, it was just right at the end of the dream. I guess it was the perfect time to wake up. And I think it was from listening to Prabhupada's class last night. And I get the same realization whenever I study any verse. It's the baseline for any consciousness in my the way I see things is just trying to know that I'm not the body. And so in my dream, this guy, Lester, said, he showed up and there was a lot of people around and we were talking and I was admiring him and looking at him and missing him and glad to see him again. And he said, I have to tell you something, Leah, he says, I learned a new song and I learned it from that guy over there. And he pointed and it was a devotee. And he said, that devotee took me on his sailboat and he taught me this song and we've been singing it while we're crossing the waters. And I said, well, what is the song? And he sang, Dehino Shminyatadehe Komaran Yoganan. So he sang it. So that was in a tune when I woke up this morning. And I said, there's that verse that says, we're not this body. So here's this old friend coming up in my dream. He says, just hear me now. Just hear this, So it was so sweet. And so, I kind of felt like, okay, if this is my verse this week that I'm meditating on, then is this Krishna carrying what I lack? Like, is this Krishna speaking to me in a dream? Is this how can I use this in my class tonight in a way that, like, to me, it's like every time I read something, it's like if I would just get that, if I could just realize that, then I wouldn't do half of the things or most of the things that I'm doing and everything would be better. And so I put that in my list of, like, if you don't want to be homeless, and you don't want to be starving, then get over yourself, So it was kind of nice remembering Lester last night and this morning. And so a lot of preparing for this verse had to do with anxiety around food, as I've already spoken about. And to me, it boils down even further to lack of trust. And so why don't I trust that I'm going to be okay, that I'm going to have enough food and I'm going to have a roof over my head. I'm going to have enough clothes to wear and I'm going to have a gas in my car and I'm going to have a car that whatever I need, I'm going to have that Krishna's going to provide it. And so, if I need it, if I'm supposed to have it to do my service, look what he's given me here, this beautiful home that Anasuya has purchased for our community. It definitely brings out my strengths and supports my strengths. So I can go there too. But why so much anxiety? Like, everybody's got the anxiety and a lot of it's around food and shelter. And so Prabhupada talked about in some of the letters I read about how the tribe, like tribe people, jungle tribes type people, they manage to not starve to death, and they're not going to an office building or anxiety all day about trying to find something to eat. And I was an anthropologist, I think I told you guys before, so I studied for 3 years in the Amazon jungle with some tribes. And yeah, they weren't like that at all. They didn't have any anxiety. People were laying around in hammocks all day long. Like, they were laying around in hammocks. They were playing in the river, and it was calm and beautiful. I was so attracted to it. But that's not where, you would have think I would have some inspiration from that. But I think what I assume from reading all this week is that it's lack of faith. It boils down to lack of faith, my anxiety, and maybe our anxiety. If I really had faith in Krishna, if I really had faith in that I'm not the body, if I really had faith in Prabhupada, then I would be like I was talking about earlier, I wouldn't care that there's no food. I'd say, well, this is how it's supposed to be. But deep inside of me, there's fear. And so I was also reading about how Lord Chaitanya fed Haridas Thakur because he couldn't go in the temple, and he was outside in the courtyard or whatever, and Chaitanya would bring him these meals, and he didn't have that anxiety attack of, oh, what time are you going to be here? I don't know if I can, it's going to be cold. I don't know what I'm going to need tonight. And what if, and so I don't know those kind of feelings, but I like reading about them. And as you know, twice recently, we had 2 Prabhupada House programs, the Enlightenment Program. I don't know if it's last time or the time before, I forget. And then we had the Roots program here. Some of you were there. Ladina, you were here. We had the foundational Roots program, first one ever in Gainesville here last week. And I think there were 28 people in the course. I'm not sure. These are just, I heard things from the 6 of them that stayed here. I could hear things, but I don't know for sure. But I got an email and a messenger from Parampara and from Dear Govinda about how many people to prepare food for. And the number was 8. And so I prepared for 10 or 15 thinking, okay, it never hurts to have a little extra. There's always somebody here. And so I even rounded it up to 20 and we had 28. And so then I say, well, how does that happen? And how do I have enough when because Krishna carries what I lack. And then at the program where I think we had 40 or 50 devotees a couple months ago. My number I was given was 12 and still we had enough. And so I didn't have anxiety either time. And that's where I know I'm making some progress to run back in the kitchen and start preparing all these other things. Both times I prepare the prasadam with extreme consciousness, which is new to me. I pray and I ask and I sing and I breathe, and I like it when nobody's in the kitchen with me and I can really focus. And both of those times it was like that. So I see that there's just enough. There is enough. And I made extra this and extra that because it was in my heart, not because I rushed back in the kitchen to solve the problem. So to me, that also feels like Krishna carrying what I lack and me trusting more than I used to. And I wanted to just share a couple of examples with you of where I come from, besides the awesome grandmother and garden that I grew up with. When I was 33, I think I started my catering business, little tiny thing. I didn't have in mind this big thing that it turned into, but I learned really quickly that people have anxiety around having enough food. And it spread to me and the staff and my sales team and the kitchen staff and the chefs. Everybody was worried all the time, no matter what. So I developed a way of, we had a mathematical system of deciding how much food to prepare. It wasn't a guessing game. It was very mathematical. So you get 4 ounces of each side, 4 ounces of starch, 6 ounces of protein. It was all calculated. And then we knew who we were feeding, football players or the bridge team at the apartment complex. Like, we had all these varieties of people and we knew how to calculate all this stuff. And still, it was everybody's biggest fear not to have enough. It was my biggest fear to get yelled at by the customer and not get paid. It was the staff's biggest fear. They'd be having to face the father of the bride when he didn't get his, potato. And so we just had all this anxiety around it. And so I developed a way of asking the customer, and I would be real with them. And I would say, okay, before we work out your menu and your price and everything, I'm going to ask you to rate on the scale of 1 to 10. What are your thoughts about running out of food? A 1 would be, I've got X amount of dollars and X amount of food. I'm paying, you're eating free. When we run out, so sad, too bad, I'm done. It doesn't matter. That would be a 1. And a 10 would be, this is how we all dealt with our customers, is a 10 would be, if everybody doesn't get as much as they all want, it'll be the worst day of my life and I'm going to have to kill myself. Like, it'd be the worst. And so I want to tell you that 99.9% of the customers said 10. You can't run out. So in saying that, it meant nobody, we had to over prepare. They over ordered, we over prepared. Everybody had fear. So then we added some more and 10 more rolls and another box of salad and another. And so then you're talking about all the waste and the recycling of it and donating to the shelter. And it was a whole full-time job just dealing with what came back and got wasted. So thousands and thousands of pounds of food. And this was just in my one building. So I imagine it's exponential across the country and the world. So lots of anxiety there. So I carry that anxiety here at Prabhupada House of years of, we can't run out, and what that does to my adrenals. So I hope that you'll forgive me if you do notice that I have that food anxiety, but I will say it's improved, and I appreciate your trust and support during that. So we're going to trust in Krishna to provide for us, and we're not going to. I'm just having a memory of my need for immediate gratification fits in here as well, because having catered events meant there was 2 or 3, 10, 20 catered events a day. So it was 10 or 20 hits of adrenaline and beautiful feedback on how awesome I was 10 or 20 times a day. And then there was 10 or 20 checks coming in my bank account every day. So I noticed that I liked that instant gratification. And then I had a couple of friends who were architects, and they would be writing on these drawing boards all night and planning these projects, and the land hadn't even been purchased yet, and it had to be bid on, and maybe it wouldn't even turn into a project. And I would get so much, like, I was like, how do you do that? Like, I have this job, and I would brag about how exciting it is, because mine was just like exciting every day. There was so much feedback and so much praise and so much ego and so much money. And so I wasn't trusting God to give it to me. I was working my butt off thinking I had to do it. And so I'm really enjoying moving into letting that go in these last 2 years. And then, so I want to end with just this story about Sudama, and I'll try to make it quick since we are almost coming up on an hour. So Sudama is a story about carrying what he lacks, and he was a devotee. He loved God. He practiced bhakti. He wanted salvation. So Sudama is renounced, and he's happy. He's living in poverty. He's got a wife and kids who are convinced him to go meet his old friend Krishna and to ask for help, because they didn't have enough food. So the wife gets some poha from next door, because they didn't even have any for their kids. She's embarrassed. He's embarrassed, but they take this little knapsack of poha to Krishna, and he walks to this big palace, and the guards aren't going to let him in. What are you doing? You're kind of ragged. And so Krishna hears them, and he comes running out, and he recognizes him, and they embrace, and Krishna even washes his feet, and then he sees the little bag of rice, and he says, okay, I'm going to taste it. And he does. And so Sudama never said, hey, we need help over here. He just was too embarrassed. And he saw so much opulence, and he didn't ask, but Krishna could read in our hearts. He lives in our hearts. So he knew what Sudama was there for. And he graciously ate his favorite food, the poha. And then Sudama left and said, okay, I didn't ask, my wife's going to kill me, but I just couldn't ask. He was so embarrassed. So Krishna reciprocated further than just giving him a little food to take home. When he got home, his whole house was now a palace. His wife was beautiful and young, and everybody was happy. So I know I've heard the story a million times, but I still loved reading it again and envisioning, the embellishing that I could do to the story. But I guess he was so humble, and I'm not. So it appeals to me in the sense that Krishna had what he lacked and then some, because he, as I understand it, like he would have been happy with more devotion, not a material thing, but Krishna gave him what in his heart he desired, and he was desiring help for his family. So that's what he got. And so he comes home with this beautiful, beautiful setup. And that kind of, that's all I'll say about this chapter. I guess I'll finish with my inspiration from this verse, and my gratitude for Malini's encouragement to step into the arena and to be brave and strong and excited and vulnerable, enthusiastic to lead class, and to get the chance to experience being in devotion with the same amount of enthusiasm that I used to be in work, to spend time with Prabhupada these last couple of days, and just focus on that relationship and this verse, and his words, and to trust Krishna would carry what I lack in this class. I'm not going to berate myself. I'm not going to, I mean, I'm happy to hear comments, criticism, correction, but I like knowing that Krishna is carrying what I lack in this class, and I know that he's carrying what I lack in my life, and that I'm not going to starve. I'm not homeless. I've got ample of both. And that the driving force between studying, for me to study this verse is, it's a privilege to have a couple of days to just read Prabhupada's books and immerse myself. And it's a privilege to get well situated in this verse enough to share a little bit of it. And it's a get to thing to immerse in Prabhupada's book. So thank you for listening. And I appreciate that all of you that are here listening to my class. And I'll just ask if anybody has any questions and comments or whatever you want to share any realizations, or thank you for your patience as I ramble for an hour.
Hare Krishna, Laksmipriya.
Hare Krishna, Kelly.
I haven't been able to be as focused as I would have liked to have been, but the energy I heard from you was really inspiring and humble and touching. And I feel like the things I did hear were really inspired me to want to be with Prabhupada more, and to see how Krishna carries what I lack and gives me more than I could have asked for, and wanting to stay in that frame of mind and remember that perspective and remember Krishna more. And I know I'm gonna want to listen to this more than once again to really let that sink in and hear that and feel that. So I thank you for giving yourself so fully and vulnerably to this class, and to all of us and anyone who gets to hear. So thank you. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Kelly. Even though you weren't focused, you got an earful and some inspiration to hear again. And that's one of the ways that we don't starve to death. We get to hear.
Yeah, Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Hi, Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you for class. Thank you for bringing home all the points about surrender and about the care Krishna gives us, and how he's there for the dogs, and he's there for the cats, and he's there for us, and the stories to illuminate all those points. There's some water boiling, so it's making a lot of noise. I don't know if you hear the noise, but anyway. I really appreciate that. And just today, I had a coaching session with a client, and I've done a lot of sessions with that specific client, many packages. And that client reminded me that once in one of the sessions, I had challenged her, like, what if you have no money? So that's, a lot of people, they always want to have a cushion, or they always, even if they have food, every day they have food, every day, they're fine, their situation is fine. But that anxiety, driving us to want more, or it's not enough. Maybe it's enough for today, but what will happen tomorrow? And what about the day after tomorrow? And she reminding us, she was reminding of that session when I said, well, just face, you have zero, you have no money in your bank account. Then what will happen? And so your class is similar. It's the biggest fear people seems to have is starving, no food, or no house, being homeless. And your class bringing home that, okay, well, if that's the biggest fear, let's just face it and be with that consciousness, and then find out that, wow, that's not the end of the world. Like you could have a enlightenment program, people speak, like come and they are fed by the kirtan. Prabhupada said we can be in kirtan 24 hours a day and forget about eating and drinking and all that. Like Parikshit Maharaj, he did it for 7 days and 7 nights. And then, yeah, and to by facing those fears, and we can come to a place of being peacefully practicing Krishna consciousness, regardless if there is enough food or not, and knowing that if there is no food, like you were saying earlier, that this is Krishna's arrangement, it's for my goodness anyway. Thank you.
Yeah, it was funny to think about how we all are fear of starving, and I don't know anybody that's ever starved or been homeless. I mean, maybe they had an in-between stage, but nobody, it's not even based on anything. It's just all like lore or something. It's not real.
And yeah, and another perspective could be like, what a freedom.
Yeah.
To not worry about eating because there's nothing to eat, and not worry about maintaining a house because there's no home.
Yeah.
The freedom of the people of the jungle that you spoke about.
Yeah. Hi, Ladini, you have a question?
Yes, thank you for your class, dear Laksmipriya. It was really fun. So enlivening to hear you and see you and get like stories from your service. And I know people who starved, like both of my grandparents were starving during the Second World War. And for me, it is very real thing. Like so many places in the world have no water now, like even Madagascar, which used to be such a green island, and people are starving. So like this fear for me is like the death fear, like fear of death. So I think like, okay, so if like, let's say in Czech Republic, there is no water next year and I will starve. So like, okay, so like I have to die somehow. Yeah. And like, it's not that like one death is like more comfortable than other necessarily. So that's how I think about like the complete like starvation. Of course, like if it's only me who has no money and food and everyone around me has it, then I am sure that I would get my way somehow. But then there can be like really starvation. Yeah, and then I actually do have a question, because you are so much speaking about like carry what they lack and not so much about preserve what they have.
I'll preserve what they have.
And that's an interesting part of this verse that I was actually thinking about today. So it's far out that you picked this verse for me. And it's preserve what they have. Like, yeah, can it look like that Krishna takes it away and keeps it in his storage? Like, that's what I'm thinking, because
I think sometimes it does. It is an obstacle that he takes away, that I think that could be interchangeable with protecting what we have. Seems like.
Yeah, anyway, I was thinking how I, like practically everything that I was like proud of 7 years ago when I started to practice is like taken away. Like I was proud of my like willpower and commitment and like being like really strong, able to work 16 hours a day or more. It's just all gone. And so maybe Krishna is like preserving it somewhere.
Well, we're giving you space to practice bhakti.
Yes, I could practice with more like determination and
less distraction
will and like that, but it's just not available.
It's funny that you mentioned that about preserving what we possess, because I read a lot of stuff and Prabhupada doesn't talk as much about that either. It was more about the lack part of the verse. And I guess I could relate to that so much that I got to thinking about what are the What are the qualities that I have, the spiritual qualities that I would want Krishna to protect and hold for me and not take away. And I don't know, it's hard for me to go there because I don't know what that is. And so I can't see it. And so it was easy for me to go into fear of, food and housing and money and stuff, but I don't know. And I guess most people go there because it seems to be what Prabhupada mostly talked about in all his lectures where he talked about this verse. He didn't address that part of it so much. I don't remember much. I don't know if I remember any hard examples from any of the readings. So I wonder why. That's a good question, though. I'm going to think on that because I think it's important to know that part too.
It seems that in a verse and purports, like there is responses to that, because in the word for word is interesting because there is no like preserve what they carry, what we like, or preserve what they have.
Mhm.
But there is yoga kshemam, requirements, vahamyaham, carry I carry the requirement. So
We'll have what we need to do our service.
exactly. And so at the end of the purport, Srila Prabhupada said, Kshema refers to the merciful protection of the Lord, the Lord who helps the devotee to achieve Krishna consciousness by yoga. And when he becomes fully Krishna conscious, the Lord protects him from falling down to the miserable condition of life. So in a sense, like the way I've understood that verse, I never understood it from the like perspective of anything else but the spiritual, like he preserves what we have. If we have any spiritual credit, is preserving them because maybe those spiritual credits that we have may not be conducive for us to yoga to make advancement, and Krishna wants us to make advancement. And then he carry what we like, same thing, like in a sense, even us like Westerners with no good qualities, with no good birth, with no knowledge of anything, with only pride and whatever, Westerners. Well, yeah, I carry what we like. We like everything, but still, you're giving Bhagavad Gita class. It's a Wednesday evening and we are all here reading Bhagavad Gita. We get up in the morning and chant Hare Krishna. He's really carrying what we like and preserve what we have. And once I was speaking with Mother Nanda, and she was saying, she was quoting from a class from Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, and he was sharing that if we will get the credit that's our spiritual credit, so what we have, then it will be a complete destruction of our spiritual life. It will destroy our spiritual life. So that last sentence in the purport, I think, like really goes directly there. The Lord helps the devotee to achieve Krishna consciousness by yoga. And when he becomes fully Krishna conscious, the Lord protects him from falling down to the miserable condition of life. So like that. So he carry what we lack, which is, a lot. And he preserve what we have, which may be little, but it's really important, our spiritual credit. And all that to protect ourselves, to stay Krishna conscious and make advancement in Krishna consciousness and not fall down. Because if we were to get our credit for the service we render, or the round that we chant, or the whatever philosophy we understand, then we may become so puffed up that right away we will just be disintegrated in our spiritual life.
Yeah, I'm reflecting on my class and thinking like I come so much from a material perspective because that's where I'm at, and I can't see that. I can't see from the spiritual perspective yet, and so I'm looking at where it's what you're just saying, and it's like it goes over my head. Like it feels like I can see it, even that I can materially quantify and say, okay, so maybe that's why Krishna didn't let me meet Prabhupada until I was in my 50s, because he was saving all that till I could handle it. Like that, I still see it as like I can start somehow manipulate the information into a personal material example. Like, it doesn't.
It's very possible that each of us, we come to Krishna consciousness and carry, Krishna kind of carry what we lack, and it choose a certain time. We all lack, well, mainly we lack, and also, preserve what we have, and we don't really know what we have. And I like your example of like, that's each of us, we come in contact with the pure devotee, in contact with Srila Prabhupada, in contact with the holy name, in contact with Srimad Bhagavad Gita and Bhagavad Gita at a certain time in life when Krishna decide we are ready, and for him ready to receive, for him to carry what we lack. Yeah,
I think I could spend a lot more days studying and reading these, because each day and each more time it brings up another layer of consideration that I don't always give myself when I'm not preparing for a class.
I love preparing for class too. It helped me dive deeper into Prabhupada's words and see things that I will not see if I was just reading.
There's really nothing else to do that gives so much fulfilling satisfaction. For me, it's like, why don't you do it more, is the question I had to ask myself all week.
Yes, and everybody else, encourage everybody else also to do it.
Encourage, I do, but there everybody runs and hides, and I think I'm running to hide, but
You're showing up.
I try.
Yes, you are.
I try to encourage everybody that comes here. You want to do a class together? Do you want to? Let's pick a verse. We can study together. Or no, I don't want to. So yes, Anasuya, you have a question?
Hi, Krishna. No, just appreciating you and class and our evening together. And what was coming up for me with your sharing is like, there's just so much that I am at peace with. It's just, I feel like Krishna's carrying me, because I don't worry about what's happening at Prabhupada's house. I don't worry about what's happening at the lake house. I'm here in service to my parents, and I don't worry. I feel very carried and that's new for me. I'm used to having to be so concerned about everything, like being the controller, like what's happening here, what's happening there. I know you keep me informed, which is great, but it's not like I don't believe I'm asking you like every day, like what's happening at Prabhupada's house. And like, and like giving up control of like decision making, like you make all the daily decisions. And so that's so relieving. So I feel like there's just so much over the last 2 years for me too, is to give up that control of I don't have to know how it's going to happen. I just know that Prabhupada's house is there serving the community, and you're carrying it for me. So I'm also seeing it through the work of others. I feel like, that means that those are the little miracles that are going on, the Krishna magic behind the scenes. Is that, I just trust. And I find that amazing. And to be that calm and peaceful when people, like, I know you always express like you have so much on your plate, but I do and I don't. I feel like, it's all there and it's all happening. And I like being just in this moment and just appreciating you. So I just wanted to give you, that you give me peace. So thank you.
Hare Krishna. I'm happy to give you peace and keep anxiety from you. It sounds like it's not even about what Susanna and I are doing. It's more about where you're at and the growth that you've had in your own personal practice, that is giving you that trust and that you're not needing to micromanage. You can see that that doesn't serve you anymore.
Absolutely.
It feels good to be trusted too. Thank you for that. That's a gift. Mm.
I do.
All right. Anybody else want to say anything before we close up? Ladini, I have guests here from Czech Republic tonight. Just funny that my first Czech guest. All right. Well, thank you for being here, for everyone for showing up, Devin and Kelly and Jennifer. I'm going to close the class if anybody doesn't have anything else to share. Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity, Melanie, for setting up our Wednesday night Gita class. It's brought a lot of insights and knowledge and enthusiasm into my life. Just looking forward to it and getting another layer of Gita besides our monthly class. It's we have the Monday class, and then we have the Wednesday class, then we have our monthly class. So I still feel like I'm a beginner, but it's really beautiful to have all those different ways of expression, of a ability to hear and read with everybody together in different groups, to see that Bhagavad Gita in so many different lights, and keep it moving, keep the energy flowing with the knowledge of the Gita. Thank you for that. That's all you're doing. That's a good kind of doing, right? Good service. All right. Hare Krishna, everybody. Jai Shri Prabhupada.
Hare
Prabhupada.
Krishna. Thank you. Jai Shri Prabhupada. Bhagavad Gita ki jai.
Jai.
Thank you, Mother Laksmipriya.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye, everyone.
Haribol.